And I'm pleased to introduce Waterloo's Mayor, the Honorable Buck Clark. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, William. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and you've had a good week, I trust, and
Well,
the
yeah.
city is
Every week
moving
is a
along.
good week.
Yeah,
You know, when you
everything-
get to be my age and you wake up and you look at the obituaries and you're not there, it's a good day.
Certainly, I can understand that myself. Well, there's a lot of things that we're ripping from the headlines. The one is comes to mind is the new contract with the Cedar Bend Humane Society.
Yeah.
I know that animal control has gone under several different kind of conversions, so maybe you can give us an update on that.
Well, I don't know about several. I think that's two.
Two, that's several.
Excuse me. The new agreement that we have, William, that just passed this past Monday night, that passed the council, is for the Cedar Bend Humane Society to begin housing all of our animals. So the city of Waterloo will be responsible. The date has changed so many times I can't remember. Well, very quickly, we will be responsible for enforcing the animal control laws, and we will have animal control officers on the streets, and we will be answering animal control complaints and calls and bites and everything that's associated with that. But the big change is we will not maintain a facility to house animals any longer. When we pick up an animal, we will take it to the Cedar Bend Humane Society and we will release it to them, and then they will assume all responsibility for that animal from that point.
And they have a very specific procedure for that too, don't they, on animal, determine the animal's, the danger, for example, the medical condition of it, and there's all kinds of things that they consider when they house those animals.
That's correct.
It takes a big burden off the city, I think, because they're pretty well versed in how to do that.
Yeah, well, I think we did an incredibly good job, William. From the time we took it over, Sandy Greco was the department head, and for a good portion of the time, Maria, with our traffic department, helped Sandy, and Maria is very versed on animals, and we did a good job. But we were going to need to increase that budget and make some major changes if we wanted to be a really first-class animal control operations as far as our housing goes. So we're pleased with this new agreement. We've had lots of conversations with the two ladies from the Humane Society. We think we're all on the same page. You know, there will be detractors, as there is with everything. But we think that we have kind of the best of both worlds now, where we're going to be able to enforce our own animal control laws, and then turn the animals over to them again, and they will do what they're very good at, which is housing.
Do we have a law that specifically defines what a dangerous animal is?
We have an ordinance, and please don't ask me to repeat it or
No.
to define it, but yes, we do. There are criteria that define a dangerous dog and also a potentially dangerous dog. There are two classifications, and that is very uniquely described in our ordinances, but I can't repeat them at this point.
Yeah, and I know we've had instances in the past years where loose dogs have caused some damage both to people and to other animals.
Absolutely.
I haven't heard of anything recently, but
Well, let's find some wood to knock on somewhere, but yeah, and we routinely have bite cases, William. I mean, most of the bite cases that we have are family pets biting family members. But, you know, certainly last year we had some vicious dog attacks on individuals. We haven't had any of those this year yet, and let's just pray, literally, that we don't, because those can be pretty damaging.
and aside from this, I understand that someone will pick up dead animals if there's a roadkill near your house or something like that. What's the deal on that? Who do you call?
We still will do that. We'll pick up the dead animals, the dead deer, dead cats, dead dogs, whatever. We pick those up and dispose of them.
Including squirrels, rabbits, that sort of thing?
Well, you know, we very honestly, we don't get real excited about dogs and the smaller animals, but will we pick them up? Yes, eventually we will.
Yeah, you have to have something for the crows.
Yeah, you said that, I didn't.
Well, just something I'd like to mention mostly for our listeners. I know this is not your area of expertise, but in the paper there was an article on the 15th of May that talked about Met Transit having a arrangement with Google Maps. There's a transit link now that you can get. It's like a little bus icon, And if you click there and put where you live and where you want to go, you can find the bus routes, the times, how much you have to walk, how far you have to walk to pick up the bus. Just interesting. I think people should take a look at that.
Absolutely, and I just became familiar with that, you know, as recently as this morning. But I think it's a very cool project, and Mark Little runs our Met Transit program here in Waterloo, and is just, Mark does a great job of keeping this transit system as cutting edge as he possibly can. And that's cool.
Yeah, and this also allows people, you don't have to call dispatch now, you can actually see the routes and everything, and rather than call dispatch asking where the buses are, you can do this. And there is a website for Met Transit too, I'm sure they'll have some information about that. And I think eventually you'll be able to get an app for your smartphone.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing that I get as I get older is I get less technical savvy. As things get developed, I always ask my grandson, you know, how do you work this thing? But they're good, and folks that are handy with their cell phones can do just about anything with those things. So now you can find your bus route and find where to change and how long it's gonna take you to get there and which bus to get on, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all good.
And I would really encourage people to take a look at bus schedules and bus routes. Sometimes it's just nice to ride the bus just for relaxation. Don't worry about parking, don't worry about fighting with irrational drivers, that sort of thing.
I ride my bicycle for that, William, but yeah. No, and again, giving Met and Mark Little a plug, I mean, they do a great job with that. You know, Waterloo is not an enormous city, but we do have a need for public transportation. And the buses that we have, as much as financially possible, are kept in top-notch shape, and they're clean, and the drivers know what they're doing, and it is a very good system. We're very lucky, actually, to have such a good system in our town.
Yeah, unlike maybe New York City or Chicago, you can ask bus drivers questions and they'd be glad to help you out.
Yeah. You know, that I tend to ride cabs instead of buses when I go to large cities, because this app thing would be very handy, because I'm a little, quite honestly, skeptical about stepping on a bus in a large city and then not knowing where I'm going to end up.
Yeah.
You know, and then which bus do I get on, and so I don't do it. I take cabs. But this would be a very handy thing to have in a large city, and in Waterloo.
And I think people just take a look at it, because it'll tell you where you transfer. Generally, the buses meet at a certain point, and you can see where that is and so forth.
Yep.
So anyway, new and improved things happening in the city.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
And speaking of new things, we understand there's a brewery interested in perhaps obtaining the new Hostess plant. And tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, Single Speed Brewery from Cedar Falls, who Dave Morgan is the fellow's name. Very, very bright guy, very good at his craft, which is brewing beer. Has started that, and it's a very local beer right now. It's a very, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure that Dave goes much beyond Cedar Falls and Waterloo with his product. Is looking for a place to expand his operation to become much more regional with his product, and maybe to partner with some larger breweries and to just grow his brand. He has looked at the Wonder Bread site as a potential for that, to do that, to expand his business and expand his product. And we are working with Dave on that. As I've been quoted in the paper many times, what we want to do with that building is, it's such an important site and an important location that we being Waterloo, the city of Waterloo, want to make sure that we do the right thing at that location. Dave Morgan and Single Speed Brewery may very well be that right thing, but it's the first thing that's been presented to us, and we have a lot of due diligence to do, both from his side and from our side, before that would ever become a reality. Both he and us need to make sure that it's a financial viable product. We need to have a design review of what the building's going to look like when it gets done. We need to know the sustainability of that. We don't want to put a business in there that's short on capital, and in a couple of years it's not there anymore. So we are doing with this project the same thing that we do with absolutely every project that we do, is we do a thorough vetting of it. There is a process that we go through, and we are going through that with Dave and with Single Speed. So it may very well turn up there. It may very well end up there. I'm sorry. But we have some due diligence to do on both of our parts before that becomes a reality.
Well, I think as you mentioned, it would actually allow him to expand his business, even maybe on a national basis. I also understand that building wouldn't be entirely occupied by him. He'd have some space where he could do some ancillary businesses, or somebody could do.
Well, those are some of the things that we have to vet, William. Dave, doesn't need the entire space. So then, is he going to fill the rest of it, or are we going to fill the rest of it? There are some other interested parties, but there again, I cannot overstate the fact of how important that location is, and how we need to be incredibly certain that we get in business with the right people on this. And I'm certainly not saying that this isn't the right one. It may very well be, but we're not far enough down that road yet to know that this is exactly what we want and where we want it. You know, there is a conscious effort to save as much of that building as we can, if not all of it. But we don't know that yet. I mean, there's rumors flying everywhere that the mayor wants to tear it down. I don't want to tear it down. I want to, you know, I can remember the smell of bread as much as anybody. And I think that there's some real importance to the facade of that building. I'm not sure how much importance there is to the entire building. So if we can preserve the facade of that, so when you drive by it, you see the Wonder Bread sign and that mosaic brick out front and all of that stuff, so that you know, you're never going to smell the bread there again, no matter what we say about it. So that part is gone, and we are very intentionally trying to save as much of that building as is appropriate. Whether that ends up being all of it or some of it, we don't know yet. There's just a lot of due diligence to be done on this building.
Yeah, and different businesses have different requirements for, say, the sewer system, the water system, that sort of thing. All that stuff has to be considered also, I suppose.
That's correct. You know, there's a real push on this Wonder Bread building to make it a, quote, historical designation, a historical site. And I think what some people lose sight of is when a building gets that designation, you are immediately incredibly limited to what you can do to the building. So if we can get the best of both worlds, I don't necessarily think it's in our best interest to have it designated historical. But we're exploring that to see if it even can be. But if it is, then boy, it really limits what you can do with the building, and it makes everything you do to the building incredibly expensive. So, you know, we're going to do the right thing, and we're going to make, to the best of our ability, make sure that we have everything, all of our I's dotted and T's crossed.
But I can see where this is appealing.
Absolutely. It's got a great deal of appeal. And whether Single Speed ends up getting the entire building, or whether they're a tenant in the building along with several other tenants, we just don't know that yet.
But I have heard possibility for beer hall or restaurant
Yeah.
to be associated with that.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be very cool down there. And Dave's, again, giving all credit that Dave Morgan deserves. He is very good at what he does. And I don't think he is anxious to get in something that he hasn't completely vetted either. So both of us are doing our due diligence and taking steps. It is a very legitimate prospect for that building, but it's not done yet.
Well, and I think that ties into maybe our next suggestion, our next topic. And by the way, if you've just joined us, you're listening to the Mayor's Update. We are speaking to the Honorable Mayor Buck Clark. I'm William Kay, your host, and I use the term honorably.
Good. Well, we're both honorable people, so there we go.
That's right. And it is an official title.
Most times.
And I think you'll be known as the Honorable Mayor for the rest of your life. I think that's a lifelong title.
Oh, good.
I see that the city has hired a consultant to talk about the TIF program here, and maybe you can explain a little bit more about what that consultant is doing and how that affects us.
Well, I think it might be a misnomer to say they are a consultant. We contracted with Springstead Incorporated, who are a conglomerate of consultants that do all kinds of things out of the Twin Cities area, to come down to Waterloo and give one presentation. This is not an ongoing relationship. This was one presentation to try to make one more attempt, William, to our council and to citizens and critics and the business community to explain the necessity of financial incentives used by cities to attract new business, whether that's either rebates or abates of taxes, property taxes, or whether it's using the TIF tool. These folks do this across the country, and we are, you know, the noise seems to be getting louder about Waterloo specifically, using incentives to attract businesses. This group made it abundantly clear that that's the way we attract businesses. You know, should we stop using TIF? Should we stop giving land to a developer for $1 in return with a development agreement to develop the property and grow the tax base and hire? We would cease to grow. We just would, you know, because every other city in the country uses incentives to attract business and industry to their community. We are no different, and so anyway, the intent to bring Springstead to Waterloo was to have that, quote, expert, that guy in a suit with a suitcase from out of town, to come to Waterloo and say, you guys are doing the right thing, and you need to continue to do the right thing. And I don't know if we got that message across or not. There are some people that are just so close-minded to TIF that I'm not sure. But we are going to continue to use it, and it's a very effective tool in attracting new business and growth to Waterloo.
Well, and of course, since every city uses it, those incentives are weighed by different companies when they're making their choices.
Yeah.
But essentially what you're doing is you're investing a certain amount of money, and sometimes a fair amount of money,
Mm-hmm.
for the long-term benefit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, VGM, they have a $20 million expansion,
Mm-hmm.
and we're providing them with what I think is $40,000. Well, I can't remember the
It
actual.
was more than that.
Yeah, but there's a large investment in that. But it, not only does it benefit the tax base for the actual facility, but it also allows for them to hire more people and maybe actually increase the infrastructure of that area around there, the roads and that sort of thing.
What one of the messages that, to me, William, in this presentation by Springstead, that was maybe more loud and more clear than any other message was, there's a, quote, but for question that you have to ask yourself when you apply incentives, whether it's TIF or taxes or whatever. And that is, and let's just use VGM as an example. But for those incentives that Waterloo provided them, would they have gone somewhere else? Let's use the one we just talked about, Single Speed Brewery downtown. But for incentives that we are going to provide them, if they do become the business that's going there, would they go somewhere else? But for using TIF and other financial incentives, would businesses go somewhere else? And my and our team's resounding answer to that question is almost 100% of the time. But for the incentives that we offer, these businesses are going to go somewhere else. So, you know, you're in that dilemma, and eventually those incentives stop. You know, most of them are 10 years. Some are longer than that, depending on the amount of employees, the amount of tax base that they're going to raise. But those incentives stop, and they begin to be regular tax-paying entities that we would not have, but for the incentives we would not have.
Well, the other thing too we don't consider, take for example the bakery. If somebody doesn't move in there in a certain length of time, then the building begins to become degraded.
Oh, of course.
If you got a bad roof, and then eventually, if it becomes in bad shape, nobody will really want it, and then you will wind up a parking lot.
I mean, again, the bakery is probably a good example. You know, we purchased that building for $400,000 so that we could control its destiny. Had we not purchased it, somebody else would have, and no telling what would have gone there. But, and most likely, we will give that building we will sell that building to a developer for $1. And we will apply some tax, either abatements or rebates to that building for a business to go there, which will make it more financially viable for a business to locate there. But we hope in the long run that we get, you know, X number of new employees, we get new growth, we get a new business, we get a new entity downtown, we get all kinds of good things from that investment that will, and I would assume in that particular case, within 10 years, they're going to be a tax-paying entity that we would not otherwise have had.
Yeah, and for a lot of businesses, and I know from my own experiences, startup is your most expensive time. Sometimes capital is hard to get, and all these things really help that incentive to get started, because they're taking some of that burden away,
Yes.
which they'll pay back later when
Yes.
they become fully viable tax-paying.
That's correct, that's correct.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about that now. KWWL's building, and I understand that's going to go through a major renovation.
Yeah.
And they're staying here. Also, the city may be in fact buying a couple floors in that building.
That, you were right up to that point,
Uh-huh.
and a couple of floors were the third and floors in question. You know, we've been working very hard to try to get into a situation with somebody so we wouldn't have to buy the
Uh-huh.
third and fourth floor, and we may be there now. We may have an investor other than the city that's going to purchase those two floors and develop something totally different in there. And you know, as you know, I can't talk about that yet because nobody has been identified, but the third and fourth floors of that KWWL building have been in question as to what's going to happen to them. We now believe that we're just about there with somebody other than the city purchasing them, which will be a very positive thing. But I tell you what, that building is going to be a really cool building when they get done. Their entrance will be on that east end of that, where the American Legion building is now. Obviously, that was very controversial also. We have purchased that. The American Legion is in the process of moving out, and when they are, we will demolish it. That will be the front entrance to the KWWL, is from that east end, which is where it used to be in, you know, 100 years ago or whatever, when that building was old and historic. That's where the entrance was. And that whole first and second floor has a facade on it that bricked up and closed up, a whole bunch of really cool windows and entrances and all kinds of things. That's going to be an incredibly cool building when that gets done. And that's another, William, an incredibly prime example of the but-for clause. KWWL had started making arrangements with another owner in another city to move out of Waterloo. They would have done that had we not stepped up and offered some pretty healthy incentives, quite honestly. Maybe we went a little farther with that project than we have with some others, but we, and when I say we, I mean me and our team in the city, thought that was a business that we just needed to step up for, that we need to keep KWWL in downtown Waterloo. And so we did, and I think in the end it's going to pay big dividends for us. They would have gone somewhere else.
And I might mention that the third and fourth floor probably do need some substantial renovations,
Yes,
modernization and that sort of thing.
Yes,
Those things have not been. And it would be nice if they got a new elevator. It seems to me that in New York City, you can go 40 floors in the time it takes you to go 4 floors here in Waterloo.
I think somebody's in the basement, you know, pulling a rope or something for that elevator. It's pretty slow. My good friend Ronnie Knapp used to have a production studio on the third floor of that building, and we used to go over there quite a bit. And yeah, it's pretty. Those floors are in need of some repair.
Yeah, they are. I thought too that we could talk a little bit about the VFW. I know that I belong to a veterans organization called 48. We do meet there, but that building is very difficult to take care of. I don't think it's in the best of shape, and I think the VFW's moving is probably good for them. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and what arrangements were made with the city?
Well, yeah, sure, I can. And again, that was a situation where in order to make the KWWL project go forward, we had to have that parking lot. So we have been negotiating with the VFW for a long time to acquire that building. And that wasn't necessarily an easy process, but we did not want to force them to leave on our terms. We wanted them to be comfortable with where they moved to. We showed that group a ton of different locations, and for one reason or the other, they just didn't work. And surprisingly enough, the location that they arrived at, they found on their own. After all of our efforts, they found a place. They liked it. They could afford it. The city helped them buy it so that we could move them. And I think it is my impression now that everyone in this whole process are just happy as clams. You know, the VFW is good, KWL is good, the city's good, the seller of their building is good. So I think we have struck a good agreement here that everybody is happy. And you're right, that building that they were in was multi-story. It was old, it was hard to heat, hard to cool, it was larger than they needed. They were comfortable in it, I understand that, but I believe that they will become comfortable in their new location, and they seem to be very happy with their new location, so we're pleased with that.
Now, that VFW building will be torn down.
Yes.
And the city will take care of that?
Tearing it down,
Yes.
the demolition cost, yes, that's part of the agreement, we will demolish that, and we will give KWL a parking lot. Yeah.
And you know, with the development of, I guess we call it Franklin Street,
Yeah.
the fact that KWW is staying there and being renovated actually is a nice little jewel to be in that whole
I think it was absolutely key, William, and again, you know, just, not just to keep the station, the television station here, but what would have happened to that building is that would have become, like you said, the Wonderberry building, that would have been a big empty building that needed a lot of work, that would have probably sat there for a long time.
And speaking of that, can you tell us anything new about 519 East 3rd, the building that, is it the House of Hope was?
Yeah, is it 59, is that the address? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Is it, okay, yeah. We're still negotiating a development agreement with JSA Development on that. You know, Jim Walsh and I are very good friends, have been for a long time. Jim is JSA Development, and quite honestly, he was completely unrealistic in what he wanted the city to do on that building to begin with. So we've had to pull him down off of the ledge and say, okay, now let's get realistic with what the city can do. It's a residence. You know, we don't give the kind of incentives for somebody to renovate an old house that we do for a business. So we are negotiating a development agreement for that, and we're still quite a ways apart.
Does that include both houses? Or
No, just the one.
Because there are two that are there.
There are two. The other one is still individually owned. We do not own it. If Jim wants that, or if JSA wants it, they're gonna have to go buy it. We're not gonna buy that.
Okay.
And we're closer, but we still have some significant disagreements on that house.
And how's House of Hope doing that? Is it?
Well, I think they're looking for another location. I haven't talked to them for several weeks now, so, but, you know, they need more room, and it's, I still maintain that was not necessarily the right move to make. It's what council decided, and then there you go. But, you know, if that would have gone through the way the city wanted it, House of Hope would have a brand new building, they'd have a new campus, we'd have the old brick building that's now in the way of development. It's not the way it went. So everything is on hold. House of Hope is on hold, JSA is on hold, the city's on hold, everybody's on hold until we can work out some kind of agreement.
Okay, but that is an area that does need some redevelopment.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Because you have that new, that's relatively new little strip mall there where Popcorn Heaven is.
Yeah, and Earth Beauty Supply,
Mhm.
yeah. And that's the whole development of the Franklin Street corridor there, which is, again, we go back to the television station. It's, you know, we have development all over town. William. We have places redeveloping and developing where there hasn't been anything new for centuries. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, we're running out of time.
Imagine that.
And we have so much more to talk about. We've been talking to the mayor, Buck Clark. Thank you so much, Mayor. You know, it's always a pleasure to have you here talking and updating on this.
You're welcome.
And thanks to our listeners, and be sure, you listeners, to take an active interest in what's going on in the city. You can watch meetings available on YouTube or through the city's website, or keep informed by reading the newspaper. If you have concerns or questions, be sure to contact your council representative or the appropriate city department. Information can be found on www.ci.waterloo.ia.us or search for the City of Waterloo, Iowa. We have a participatory government, so please evaluate the issues, discuss them with your friends and family, make your concerns known. It is your right, your privilege, and your duty. A final note, we have underwriters that support this public radio station. Be sure to thank them for their support. And you can be a supporter as well. Consider keeping us on the air by making a financial contribution. It's important. Until next time, keep in mind that city business is your business, and be sure to mind your business. This has been the Mayor's Update. I'm William Kay, and you are listening to KBBG 88.1 FM, Waterloo. Good day.